Good morning and welcome to this case study video for greening the city. Today we're going to look at Cambridgeshire in the UK, and we're going to talk briefly about issues of scale, landscape connectivity and landscape functionality. Now, Cambridgeshire has been selected as a good example of how issues of scale, particularly multiple scales from the regional to the sub-region to the city to the site, have been integrated into their strategic green infrastructure planning. And this has been done via a series of strategic iterations, so two strategic policies from 2006 and 2011, but also a series of local government policies, be it for Cambridge City itself or East Cambridgeshire or South Cambridgeshire. And one of the reasons why this location is quite interesting, because it was a forerunner of green infrastructure thinking and green infrastructure planning, with the 2006 strategy being one of the first in the UK, but also because the area has a blend of urban and economically focused centres, so Cambridge itself, and a rural hinterland where the issues of agriculture and water management and forestry and woodland are slightly different. So within the Cambridgeshire region, we have to think about how individual sites or individual resources can be scaled up to be part of a broader network or a broader matrix of spaces. And this has thrown up quite a number of complexities between how the different local government units in the area actually can work together, or if they are working together, the draw of the main urban centres, so Cambridge or Huntingdon, for example, and the way in which the wider landscape and the cities are almost seem to be in a binary context where rural is agriculture and urban is the university town of Cambridge. And what we have seen here is an evolution of the thinking for green infrastructure, and the way in which issues of biodiversity, of climate change, of economic growth and of health and well-being have been targeted via a series of specific interventions, be it at a site scale or, in terms of the image there on the right, the River Nene, some of a landscape scale project investment. And they're looked at as through a set of thematic ideas, so be it climate change, gateways and entranceways into urban areas, heritage or public access to green space. And what we've seen in the Cambridgeshire area is a quite a subtle and quite a nuanced appreciation on the fact that landscape can deliver a number of different benefits at the same time. They're not all supposed to deliver on climate change, they're not all supposed to deliver on biodiversity, but actually across a spectrum of interventions, you can deliver across these very strategic targets in a way which a single site might not be able to deliver. And that's quite important when we're thinking about greening urban areas and greening the network, because if we try and integrate all the different ideas from biodiversity, from climate change, from water management, from socio-economic understandings, from economic uplift, then invariably we might actually fail to deliver on all these things in one place. But if we actually start to think strategically about how we can be more directed in terms of using particular landscapes or particular types of intervention to address climate change or rights of way, then we can be far more strategic in how we do things. And one example of this in Cambridge is an urban extension called Trumpington Meadows, where they developed a new design guide for the town, which explicitly placed green infrastructure, urban greening and woodlands at the heart of what they were trying to do. And they went beyond the simple use of urban greening as a screening, but actually made it a delivery principle or indeed a first principle of the area. So the big idea was to make a town that was located in an ecologically and socio-economically viable area, that they had to use the title Meadows, both metaphorically in terms of trying to sell the area, but also figuratively in terms of having that ecological base there all the time. And they wanted it to be one of the greenest areas in Cambridge, which, although being quite rural, is actually quite a built-up area. So the design guide had a lot of technical specifications in there, had a lot of options for what kind of urban greening could be delivered, and that was used to really structure the physical footprint of the area, but also to structure the management processes going forward. And what they did with this is that they were trying to promote a multifunctionality of the landscape so that it could be beneficial economically as well as socially and environmentally. And one thing that has been brought up with the work in Cambridgeshire is, who is this investment for, and who are we actually delivering green infrastructure for? So is it for the city councils to actually meet their investment targets? Is it for local communities to develop and deliver on their socio-economic needs of things like health, well-being and recreation? Or is it more about maintaining the landscape for adaptation to climate change or flooding? And the example here on the right from Ely Country Park is a good exemplar of this, because this path that was put in during my time at the council was deemed to be destroying the park for the local community. Although the play area was put in, this meant that people could actually walk there with their strollers or with a pushchair or with a wheelchair. So it actually provided access. So one of the things that they've been trying to deal with in Cambridgeshire is working out who the landscape is for. Is it for everybody? Are they investing in a landscape that is equitable for all? Or are we trying to develop green infrastructure and urban greening projects which are quite niche and protective of one particular community? So Cambridgeshire hasn't got everything right, but it has got the strategic network embodied in policy. It has got the combination of biodiversity, of climate change, of socio-economic understandings in there as well, and it is still seen as being a forerunner of the GI agenda. And unlike in other examples that we'll talk about in other videos, it still seems to be quite positive. I hope that was useful, and we'll have more of these discussions in class.